A while ago, before I started my self-improvement journey, I didn't have very good hygiene. I hated taking showers, brushing my teeth. I didn't have a skincare routine, but luckily enough, I had the common sense to at least like wear deodorant and put on cologne when I went out. So I didn't necessarily like stink very badly, but my hygiene wasn't necessarily, good enough to be on par with, your average functioning human being. But anyway, I never really suffered from terrible body odor, so I never really saw it as something I needed to improve upon. I didn't begin to see my hygiene as an issue until I was introduced to self-improvement. I started watching people like the Tates or Jordan Peterson or even Hamza, for example, and these people are like yelling at you in your face. You gotta get better, you gotta put in the work, start a business and things like that. And I'm like, well, I can get behind that. That's something I'm interested in. That's something I wanted to do. So, after listening to these people, I had to take an objective look at my life and how I was living. And I realized that hygiene is actually an issue. It was actually a problem. So I decided that I was going to change it. I had to fix it. And it wasn't easy at first. I would constantly make excuses as to why I couldn't do it. I'd be too tired, or, I don't have time to do that. And it didn't help that I was way too focused on video games back then to worry about anything else in my life. So after realizing that I wasn't necessarily making any progress, I had to take a step back and ask myself what I was trying to do, what I was trying to accomplish, who I was trying to become. And as cringy as it is, I want to be the top G. I want to be high status or high value or something like that, for lack of a better term. And so after I figured out what I was aiming for, I asked myself, well, what type of things does this person do? What types of actions does this person take? And so, well, this type of person, they're financially free, they have a solid network of competent people around them, but they also have good hygiene. So to get to the point that I wanted to in life, I decided that I needed to fix my hygiene. So now that I had my motivation, I knew what I was trying to become. I simply had to create a plan to get there. So started brushing my teeth every night, showering, flossing, doing all that stuff, and I even started implementing a skin routine that I would do every morning and every night. And sure enough, I started making consistent progress, and now it's to the point where I don't have to think about these things to do them anymore. It's just automatic. And I hadn't really given much thought to the process at the time until I started reading this book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And then I was able to put words to the concepts that I used to create this habit. So essentially, to build solid, healthy habits that can enhance your self-improvement by leaps and bounds, you have to understand the 3 levels at which change can occur. So the first one, and arguably the most important out of the 3, is your identity. So the word identity comes from the Latin root idem, which means the same. So in a few words, your identity is the title that you give yourself, proving that you will stay the same no matter the circumstances. It's what you believe about yourself. If being an entrepreneur is a part of your identity, you're going to stay an entrepreneur no matter what happens to you. So to build a solid habit or to get rid of a bad one, you first have to alter your identity. So to make this a little bit easier to understand, let's imagine this scenario where you have two smokers who are trying to quit their smoking addiction. So both men are asked by one of their friends if they want to smoke, if they want to take a cigarette. So the first man says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit smoking," right? But his friend keeps pushing, and eventually he ends up folding and, smoking that cigarette. Then the second man, his friend asks him if he wants to smoke, and he simply says, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker," and his friend doesn't push it any further. So the difference between these 2 men is that the first man, his identity is still that of a smoker. He's a smoker who's trying to quit. But the second man, his identity is simply a person who does not smoke. He's not trying to quit smoking. He just doesn't smoke. And that simple shift in your mindset makes such a big difference. Essentially, if you want to build any habit, let's say going to the gym, you have to alter your identity to match that of a healthy person, because healthy people stay healthy. which is going to motivate you to get in the gym and get your body right, get your body correct. So the next major concept that you have to understand are systems. So systems are the processes, the roadmaps, like your plan, your steps, the steps that you take to get from point A to point B. Sure, we can alter our identities, but without taking any action, they aren't going to stick. We'll simply revert back to how we were before. So let's say you're trying to build a study habit so you can improve your grades. You would first alter your identity to that of a person who studies a lot. You would change your identity to that of a studious person. So now you plan to make that identity and turn it into reality. So you go in your room, you sit down, and you start brainstorming. You start coming up with a plan to get you from where you are now to your goal of getting better grades. So you decide that you're going to study for 1 hour every day, and that in every class you're going to take at least 2 pages of notes that you review at the end of the day. You also decide that you're going to read 1 book every week just to improve your vocabulary. So now you've got a plan, you've got a system. All you have to do is go out and start executing it. So you start studying every day, you start taking your notes, you start reading every week, right? Sure, you might miss a day, but you'll make sure never to miss 2 in a row. And as you keep progressing, as you keep keeping this habit up, eventually you find out that your grades have improved, right? You're finally getting straight A's in class. You realize that you built an amazing study habit. So the final level that you need to understand is outcomes. Outcomes are the goals that we want to achieve. They're the reason we wanted to make these habits in the first place. Without a proper goal, we'll end up going in random directions, right? Say you have a goal of getting 6-pack abs. You aren't going to make a habit of reading 10 minutes a day because that isn't going to get you 6-pack abs. You need to target something to set your sights on, direct your energy towards. Taking my story from earlier, the goal I wanted to achieve was to become the top G, become high status. And to get there, a part of the process that I had to take, something I needed to fix, was my hygiene. So I started taking actions that would get me towards that goal. Having a skincare routine, brushing and flossing your teeth daily, showering every day, these are actions that get me towards that goal. So let's say you want the outcome of making $10,000 in a single month. You would start taking actions that get you towards that outcome. You would wake up at 6 a.m. every morning. You would make sure to have at least 4 hours of focused work with no distractions, right? You would save yourself some leisure time to let your creative mind get to work and start flowing. And soon you'll hit 1K, then 5, and then you're finally at that first 10K month. All because you had these habits that were directing you towards your goal. Now, it's important to understand that you need all 3 of these if you want to build a long-lasting, healthy habit or get rid of a very detrimental habit. If you only use identity and systems, you won't know what you're aiming for. If you only use identity and outcomes, you won't know how to get there. If you only use systems and outcomes, your habits won't stick. You'll just revert back to how you were before. You need all 3. And the beautiful thing about that is, if you get all 3, they just become automatic. And this is because of something called a feedback loop. Let's say you want to lose weight. That's your goal, the outcome that you want. So you alter your identity to that of a healthy person, right? That's identity down. Then you start resistance training, doing some cardio every morning, and going on a diet. That's your system. So taking these actions reaffirms your identity of being a healthy person, which then makes it easier to take those actions day after day, right? And eventually, if you take these actions enough times, you end up reaching your goal, like you end up losing that weight. And the thing is, when you reach this goal, it reaffirms your identity yet again. So now you don't just believe you're a healthy person, you are a healthy person. And now it's even easier to get up and go to the gym or stay on this diet or do cardio every morning, right? That person who is healthy, who believes that they're healthy, is going to keep doing the things to remain healthy. Because we as humans like to remain in that status quo. It's how I built my habit of taking care of my hygiene. And it's how you can build your habits too. Let's put our heads down and let's put the work in. Be out. Mwah.